The door was not locked, but these monsters pretending to be humans never dared to enter the house. The woman tightly held a protective stone, hoping she could make it until dawn. Every time night fell, monsters would gather in this town. They would attack humans and take organs. Until dawn they would leave. To protect everyone in the town, the sheriff would ring a bell before sunset every day. After the bell rang, everyone would immediately return home. People would also touch the protective stone at their doors. Even children would do the same. It is not hard to see the nights in this town were very dangerous. Once the streets were completely empty, the sheriff would finally return to the station in relief. The sign on the wall showed they had safely made it through 96 days. No one expected this record would be broken that night. A man was heavily drunk. The tavern owner had to lock the doors and windows, letting him stay overnight in the shop. His wife and daughter were still at home. Seeing he had not returned, the wife locked the door and hid in a room. Time slowly reached deep night. The man's daughter was preparing to go to bed. Outside the window suddenly came the voice of her late grandmother. The girl curiously pulled back the curtain. She really saw her grandmother standing outside. The figure said it was cold outside and wanted to come in and sit for a while. A few words easily convinced the little girl. The girl's mother rushed to stop her, but in the end she still could not stop her. The next day, the drunk man woke up and saw neighbors gathered at his door. Before he could ask what happened, the sheriff walked up and slapped him. The sheriff had repeatedly warned everyone, households with children must seal their windows, because children are easily deceived by monsters. But this man was careless and did not do so. In the end it led to this tragedy. Seeing his daughter's cold body, the man was filled with guilt and collapsed to his knees. But it was already too late. He had to bear the consequences of his negligence.
Lock him.
The sheriff was so angry, not only because he lost a family member, he also put the entire town at risk. Once someone in the town is harmed, it will attract outsiders. Everyone's safety will be threatened. As expected on the day of the funeral, a camper van drove into the town. The sheriff signaled the locals not to speak to them, and went up alone to ask what was going on. He learned the family had gotten lost on the road. The sheriff pointed them toward the way out. The family then drove off. Strange things soon happened. No matter how they drove, they could never leave the town, watching them circle in place. The sheriff had already expected this. He did not tell them the truth, and wanted them to slowly adapt to the environment. Only by overcoming fear in their hearts could they have a chance to survive the night. While the family was driving around, an accident suddenly happened. The camper van rolled into the woods. All 4 family members were trapped inside. The father was pinned in the driver's seat by a tree trunk. The mother was unconscious and in unknown condition. Luckily, the older daughter was not badly injured. She only twisted her waist slightly. But the younger son was in critical condition. Although he was still conscious, his thigh was pierced by a branch. On the other side, the sheriff was setting up roadblocks along the road and had not seen the family leave. As night was about to fall, he immediately took people out to search for them. After finding the trapped family, they quickly began rescue efforts. 3 of them were soon pulled out of the vehicle. Only the younger son remained inside. His wound kept bleeding heavily, and he could not be moved out directly. They had to treat him inside the vehicle on the spot. Only 40 minutes were left before dark, but treatment would take at least 1 hour. With no other choice, the sheriff decided to stay and watch over the child overnight, and sent his men to take the other 3 away first. The sky grew darker and darker. The sheriff tightly held the protective stone in his hand. Now he could only rely on it for protection. He hung the protective stone on the vehicle body. The child's father was full of confusion. The sheriff did not explain right away. He first sealed every gap in the vehicle. Only then did he tell them how dangerous the night was. At that moment, the younger son suddenly began to convulse. A series of low growls came from outside the vehicle. The sheriff turned to look out the window. The creatures had quietly gathered around them.
They're coming.
More and more of them were closing in. Even the sheriff felt a deep sense of fear. Whether they could make it through the night became the greatest test. He could only rely on the protective stone to keep himself safe, hoping to survive until dawn. At that moment, shouting came from outside the vehicle. This was the monster's way to lure humans. The experienced sheriff was not fooled, but Jim, new to the town, panicked. He thought rescuers had arrived, and tried to open the door to go out. The sheriff immediately reached out to stop him. He told Jim that outside were no humans, only monsters that prey on humans. If you don't want your son in danger, stay inside the vehicle until dawn. When dawn comes, the monsters will all leave. Jim finally calmed down after hearing this. For his child, he dared not take risks, but he did not know. His wife and daughter, who had left earlier, ran into trouble. Their rescue vehicle suddenly broke down on the road. They had to walk to a safe house. By then it was completely dark. Monsters that could harm humans were everywhere. People inside the safe house saw them, and immediately triggered the alarm. Everyone went on high alert. No matter how they knocked the door, no one would open. In the darkness, no one could tell if the other was human or monster, and the real monsters had quietly approached. A young man came forward and spoke to Julie, calling her name over and over. Julie's eyes slowly went blank. She was clearly influenced by the monsters. Luckily, the deputy acted in time, raising his hand and firing at the young man, but it did no harm. harm. Seeing everyone about to fall into danger, the female leader quickly ordered the bald man to open the door. This saved the mother and daughter. As soon as they entered, they were tied up. All newcomers had to go through this step to prevent monsters from blending into the crowd. Afterwards, the mother and daughter were separated. The leader comforted the woman not to be afraid. Everyone inside had been trapped here by accident. They had been relatively lucky. Some people only arrived in town at midnight, with no time to react. They would be taken by the monsters, but the woman could not care about herself. She was deeply worried about her husband and younger son in the vehicle. On the other side, the shouting outside the vehicle did not stop. Some monsters even climbed onto the roof. The sheriff quickly reassured the people inside. As long as the protective stone was there, the monsters could not enter the vehicle. Everyone must stay calm. Do not give the monsters any chance. Before long, the outside became silent, but something strange happened again. In the middle of the night, Jim suddenly stood up and reached for the protective stone on the vehicle. The doctor nearby rushed to stop him, but it was already too late.
No!
Oh. Hey.
It turned out it was just a nightmare. Everyone safely made it through the entire night. The rescue team also arrived at the scene at that time. Seeing that everyone was safe brought a sigh of relief. New residents had to choose where to live. The first option was the safe house where everyone protects each other. The second option was private homes in the town. Private homes offered more personal space, but also came with greater danger. If choosing to live in town homes, the protective stones must be checked before nightfall. Families with children must nail all windows shut. Monsters often try to lure people into opening doors. Children are the easiest to deceive. The town also had very strict rules. If someone broke the rules and put others in danger, they would be locked inside a metal shed overnight. There were no protective stones inside. Survival inside was almost impossible. The woman curiously asked if this punishment had ever been used. The priest replied it had never been carried out before, but tonight it would be used for the first time. After explaining the rules of both places, it was the Jim family's turn to decide. Everyone thought the family of 4 would choose the town homes together. Unexpectedly, the daughter chose the safe house alone. She felt her parents might favor her younger brother, so she wanted to act out for once. Faced with this decision, the couple struggled to accept it. They were very worried about their daughter's safety and tried to persuade her to stay with them. The sheriff reminded everyone that night was approaching. Everyone had to return to their shelter quickly to comfort the couple. He said his own son also lived in the safe house and would help take care of their daughter.
Everybody, son, we'll be going down soon.
According to the priest's arrangement, everyone went their separate ways. Tonight was the night the punishment would be carried out. The drunk man who had caused the death of his wife and daughter was now about to face strict punishment. He had to spend the entire night alone in the metal shed.
I'm ready.
Looking at the man in complete despair, the sheriff added 2 more locks in silence, silently hoping he could survive the night. But the moment the door closed, the man's fate was already sealed.